Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
There, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And welcome to the Tuesday night edition of our program. We're live, we're national. The phone number, if you want to join us, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a few things that are going on today. Of course, Mayor Muriel Bowser has been reacting to the situation on the ground in Washington, D.C. regarding the D.C. Home Rule federal takeover by the president. And we're going to get into that momentarily. We're also going to talk about a number of other issues that we have this evening. Of course, Open Phone Across America. Open Phone America is one of my favorite things to do on this program. We'll be doing that in a little bit as well, 833-4-Valdez. But I'm going to start with this this story out of Texas, because in Texas, there's been this back and forth over the gerrymandering and people, obfuscating, leaving Texas so that they don't vote, so that they don't have a quorum. And guess what? The Democrats, at least according to Breitbart here, they've finally conceded and are returning to Austin. Yep. The Texas House Democrats, who abandoned their state in protest of the Republican-led redistricting effort, are returning home after Governor Abbott took emergency action to begin removing the absent legislators as they refused to show up for work. So ABC 13 out of Texas was describing what was going on, and they haven't reported the exact date, but said that Democrats will return to the state capitol in Austin. The State House only had 95 members present for the second day in a row today, with the Speaker, who's a Republican, Dustin Burrows, predicting that the session will end and a new one will start, assuming there is no quorum on Friday. Now, Senate Democrats did not break quorum, though they did storm out of the chamber in protest as their Republican counterparts passed the new redistricting map. And there was a video of that on X, that was what I like to call Twitter, which was interesting, and I will in a little bit I'll tweet it out. But I don't know which one of the things that Governor Abbott did was what pushed them to show up for actual work, right? Was it the threat of not getting paid? I thought that one wasn't a big deal, but apparently maybe that was a big motivator. The threat of arrest, I think they relished in that. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. Maybe somebody came with a poll and said, this is no longer popular, so perhaps you should go back to work. Because polls will do it each and every time. But I don't know. I'd love your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Anyway, the deadline was last Friday afternoon, and that's when Governor Abbott started, doing what he did with the Texas Supreme Court to quickly make it clear that he had the authority to remove these legislators from their office. And I think that's really the linchpin here, when they figured out, oh, wow, you can take me out of this position because it's kind of like forfeited. And voila, people showing up. Now they storm out. That was Abbott. I don't have a cut on Abbott, but I'm looking at what he said. And he said arrest them and return. He said, arrest and return every runaway Democrat. So there you go. Anyway, let me see what else we've got here. Yada, yada, yada. That's not that interesting. All right. What was the thing I wanted to play for you? This is it right here, Muriel Bowser. So Muriel Bowser today doing a press conference and on board, right? She's on board with the president. She's seemingly playing ball. Cut number one, Muriel Bowser at the press conference today. Listen to this.
My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
So that, again, is Mayor Bowser there. And in an interesting moment today, President Trump, of course, naming Pam Bondi as his proxy. But the police chief was giving her remarks at the press conference, and a reporter asks her, what is the current chain of command? And her response, what is that? And I was really, confused by that, because the chain of command is very big in a police organization. And her being a police chief with 5 stars on her shoulder, one would have thought that she knew what that was. Maybe she didn't hear it. I don't know what happened, but I saw the video. The reporter says, so what's the current chain of command? And she says, what is that? Or what does that mean? And the mayor immediately jumps in and says, I'll take this. And says, yeah, we're working with Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is the president's proxy and under the home rule, blah, 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 and gave, a very polished professional response. But it made me wonder, why doesn't the police chief know what the chain of command is? How do we expect the chief to command a police force if the chief herself doesn't know what the chain of command is? What a bad look that was for her. And really shameful. She should be ashamed. I was ashamed to see the video. All I could say is maybe there was not a language barrier, but maybe a hearing issue, an audibility thing where she just could not hear them. That happens. There's a lot of times where I don't hear stuff. But, man, it just looked bad. You've got a police chief in the middle of a federal takeover giving remarks at a press conference where you're expected to have all the answers. And if you don't, you have to come up with something like, we're not aware of that at this time, but we'll look into it. But you can't really say that about the chain of command, right? You just can't. You're the chief. You're literally the top of the command structure. I don't know. I thought that was very alarming. And if we can grab that audio, I'll play it for you. But just very, very telling. Just scary, honestly. Scary to see that that's what's going on. Anyway, I want to talk about a little bit about D.C. and what's going on there. I also want to talk about this new jail that's being constructed. And it's got an interesting name, the something or other Speedway, which I thought was interesting. Let me see if I find that real quick just to share it with you before we get into it a little bit more. Speedway Slammer, right? This is the Speedway Slammer. The Department of Homeland Security is going to open up this new migrant detention center called the Speedway Slammer. And I think that's interesting. And even though you've got record low numbers in border crossings, even through last month, through the month of July, there are still people that are in the country that have to be adjudicated. And you need to reinforce your, points of entry, even if there's nobody coming right now. It's a perfect time to reinforce them and make sure, all the doors are working right. So we're going to talk about all of the above, right? We're going to talk about the Trump administration's record low border crossings for the month of July. We're also going to have some discussion on this new jail, the Speedway Slammer, and what that type of detention center could mean for this effort moving forward. So keep it locked right here. We're going to talk about immigration, the Department of Homeland Security, and so much more when we come back with our guest, Lora Riles, former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security. She's a scholar in Heritage Foundation now, and she's going to be joining us straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The White House says July saw the lowest ever apprehensions at the southwest border, less than 5,000. In December 2023, that figure peaked at more than 300,000.
The Trump administration deserves to do a victory lap because they're fulfilling their pledge.
Andrew Hayes is active in San Diego County Republican politics. He says before, the border was a crisis. Now that it's quieter, enforcement has shifted to the interior.
He took the initial steps to secure the border. Now it's time for them to redirect their efforts and go in and find those folks who are the criminal illegals who are here and make sure that they're targeted to be deported.
Hasso sees that shift too. More ICE raids in communities, more detentions at immigration hearings.
So that's the latest on what's happening with the border numbers in July, a record low number at the border. And this is, I think, a good thing, right? This is a good thing. Again, that report, by the way, NBC News San Diego, Andrew Hayes. And the interesting thing here is this frees up the administration to take their efforts from, defending the border, in my opinion, to their enforcement operations and other things that they're doing to shore things up in the homeland. So I want to get to that and talk a little bit about how we got to this incredibly safe border with our guest, Lora Riles. She is, again, with the Heritage Foundation and served in the Trump administration in Trump 1.0 as the chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security. Lora Riles, welcome.
Well, thank you, Rich, for having me on.
My pleasure. And you heard the report. There's a record low number from the month of July, which I think is following another record low number from the month of June. And these are, obviously it's a obviously refreshing information, right? When you look at the times that we had prior to with Joe Biden. What does this mean for the for the mission that's at hand, right? For Tom Homan as the borders are, and for all the work that has to be done.
Well, in terms of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, they are doing their job and securing the border. It's been a smashing success. The Border Patrol encounter numbers were down to 4,000 in July. Nationwide, down to 24,000, and another number you're not really hearing is in the month of July, 500 unaccompanied children. Now, 3 years ago, Border Patrol was encountering 15,000 unaccompanied children in 1 month.
Wow.
So, that saves a lot of kids. And so our border is in great shape. It is secure with the cooperation of not just Border Patrol and customs inspectors at the ports, but a significant military presence there. And the word has gotten out worldwide. It's just not the time to try and come in and sneak across our borders.
And, you bring up a good point about missing children. I think we've seen a lot of action there as well. I've seen multiple reports coming from the FBI of really big multi-agency operations to whether it's trafficking, smuggling, and abuse, those type of rings that are being captured and taken apart, as well as the whereabouts of some growing number of kids that were once deemed part of the 300,000 missing kids from HHS custody. Talk to us about that and how difficult from your perspective, it is to get your arms around a problem like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, in 2008, Congress passed a law that incentivized unaccompanied border crossings because it gave special immigration benefits to people who came as unaccompanied children. So predictably, it would just cause more parents to send their kids across unaccompanied in the hopes that they'd get an immigration benefit, stay here, have a foothold here, and then family could join them later. And sure enough, ever since that law passed, the numbers of unaccompanied children have just gone straight up. But of course, during Biden's 4 years, awful historic records of over 550,000 unaccompanied children in 4 years. Now, another bad decision that Congress made when it created the Department of Homeland Security is it gave the responsibility of housing and finding sponsors for unaccompanied children to the Department of Health and Human Services instead of DHS. And so it really further fragments our already fragmented immigration system. But during the Biden administration, because so many kids were coming in, the secretary of HHS, Becerra, literally treated them like widgets on an assembly line and just moved them out as fast as he could. So they weren't vetting sponsors. They weren't vetting the information that sponsors were giving. And so what the Trump administration is finding is, some of these addresses are bogus. They're parking lots. They aren't homes. Multiple kids are being sent to, a sponsor with other questionable men in the house, et cetera, et cetera. And so HHS lost track of, during the Biden administration, over 300,000. And so if it was bad info going in, then now the Trump administration has to piece together whatever info they can get their hands on, whether it's from the immigration court system, from whatever HHS has, if they can use IA tools to, scrape other info to try and track these kids down. But also worksite enforcement. They're finding kids like that, unfortunately, marijuana farm out in California. So it's tedious work, but they are finding large numbers. And, also a lot of teens have been coming. They were just coming for work. So it's really a mixed bag. But this was, right after secure the border, do interior enforcement, mass deportations, find the kids was, top three. So that's what HHS is doing right now.
Outstanding. Folks, we're on with Lora Riles, Heritage Foundation, where she oversees the Border Security and Immigration Center as its director. And Laura, the border czar, Tom Homan, today made an announcement that they've now gotten 10,000, or about a week ago, I think he said there was a smaller number, and now it's up to 10,000 of these missing kids that have been, rescued or found. And this seems to be, obviously 10,000 kids being saved is a great thing. But when the number is 290,000 to go, it seems like a very daunting task. How do you keep your foot on the gas with such a big goal ahead of you?
Yeah, it's sometimes you can't really look up. You just got to keep plugging away at gathering the data and running down the data to the ground and shoe leather to go knock on doors and find these kids. And it can be daunting. But really long term, what needs to happen is Congress needs to correct these two errors. It needs to repeal the special immigration benefits given to unaccompanied children. And of course, the left will scream about that and say, you don't want to help children. But the numbers belie that because, once again, it just incentivized more unaccompanied crossings.
All right. Lora Riles, stick with me. I want to come back and get your opinion on the latest with the Speedway Slammer. That's a new detention facility for migrants that is being built, and many say it's going to be a great help. Folks, we're coming right back with Lora Riles from Heritage Foundation and me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Rich, I'm honored, man, to be able to have a voice on your platform. There's probably 140,000 federal inmates that listen to you at night.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So the Speedway Slammer, that is what the Department of Homeland Security is dubbing its latest immigration detention center that it plans to open up in Indiana. This might sound a little familiar. You'll remember Alligator Alcatraz, which was just opened in southern Florida. And of course, we saw President Trump make a visit there to that detention facility. But this one's going to look a little different. It's going to be within the Miami Correctional Facility, which is already up and built and functioning. It's going to have 1,000 beds, where Alligator Alcatraz has 5,000 beds. I spoke with Trump's border czar about this capacity. Let's listen.
Pardon?
Why Indiana for this latest detention center?
Why not?
How quickly could we see it up and running?
I don't have an exact deadline on it.
What are the cost estimates for this detention center in Indiana? Who came up with the name? And also, how much is this going to look like Alligator Alcatraz?
I don't know who came up with the name, and I don't know the details. I would like to see bigger facilities that'd be more efficient, holding several thousand people. But 1,000-bed facility is a great help because we need those 1,000 beds. We need them today.
And there's 3 other states that the Department of Homeland Security is eyeing right now for these immigration detention centers. That is Arizona, Louisiana, and Nebraska.
So it looks like they're going after some of the Tren de Aragua people. Last I heard, those were some of the states where they were growing pretty rapidly. But I want to get some additional input on this from our guest. Lora Riles is Director of Border Security and Immigration at the Heritage Foundation, former acting Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Homeland Security during the first Trump administration. And Lora Riles, what do you think of what Border Czar Homan is saying here with respect to starting off with 1,000 beds in Indiana?
Yeah, it's a start. So ICE uses different business models when it comes to detention. ICE owns and operates some facilities. They will contract out with state and local prisons in some instances, and they will also contract with private detention entities. So it's kind of all of the above. And now that Congress has passed the reconciliation bill and given considerable increase in money to ICE and for detention beds in particular, then so now DHS is reaching out to states to find places that they can expand, or if they have pre-existing facilities where they're not using all the beds. And so that's why we're getting, 1,000 here, 1,000 there for right now, until ICE can get a ramp all the way up and get a regular cadence for detention beds.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, the states like Nebraska and Indiana, I think, are typically not what most Americans think of. They're thinking of New York. They're thinking of California and, big blue states like that. But when you hear some of the states that he just mentioned and were mentioned in the report, I know some of them I've heard of, a big Tren de Aragua presence in Montana and other states. Do you think it's correlated to that, or is there just ongoing issues in those states as a matter of fact?
I think it's a combination of where in a region are more detention beds needed. So, for example, Chicago has quite a bit of demand. So Indiana will give Chicago some relief in that regard. But it's also where are governors willing to cooperate with ICE. Right. Obviously, Governor DeSantis in Florida was very willing to step up first and offer up a pre-existing location. And so other governors are stepping up as well. And unfortunately, given 11 million, 13 million or more inadmissible aliens that the Biden administration let in, the states and localities are going to feel the effects of that for years to come. So it's in the state's interest to make sure that criminal aliens, other deportable aliens are detained and deported to protect citizens in that state, but also to reduce costs that are associated with everything that comes with illegal immigration.
Now, on some of the other fronts that we have, like what we're seeing in terms of Washington, D.C., we're seeing the federal government, the National Guard, even now the Parks Police being involved to help stop some of the crime there. To what extent will the, from what you can tell us, the Department of Homeland Security be involved, and for how long?
Well, right now it's 30 days, at least for D.C., and then they'll reassess. And so in D.C., we have dozens of law enforcement agencies, whether they are federal or local. And so the Trump administration is relying on lots of different federal agencies, for example, the Park Police, to enforce the laws. And DHS has Secret Service, DHS has Federal Protective Service, obviously CBP, ICE, Coast Guard where applicable. So, DHS plays a big role in this too, but so do other federal agencies within the Justice Department and elsewhere.
With that being said, I know that there's a number of entities within DHS, right? You've got Customs and Border Patrol and ICE and HSI and others. Do you think that there's going to be an all hands on deck approach to solving the DC issue, or is it going to be kind of just National Guard and a little bit of the Attorney General's team and the rest being the Metropolitan PD?
I think it's the latter, so that CBP and ICE can more focus on the interior enforcement that needs to be done and the mass deportation. So I think the Trump administration will lean on other law enforcement agencies in the federal government, along with the National Guard and, yes, the D.C. Metropolitan Police to enforce D.C. laws and get a handle on the crime there. And
what about Homeland Security investigations? I know that they seem to be pretty versatile, and they kind of put them everywhere and anywhere whenever needed. Do you expect to see some of them involved as well?
I mean, it's possible, but yeah, they're more needed for investigating immigration and doing immigration enforcement. So it's a matter of prioritization, but I can't say that HSI won't be used at all for this DC executive order, but I believe that they would be more prioritized towards immigration enforcement.
And with that said, what do you think is the next, big priority, being that the border is secure? They seem to have a flow in the removal, enforcement and removal of criminal, felonious criminal aliens. What comes next? What's, the next step in the process?
Well, interior enforcement is going to be, it's going to take a long time and a lot of operations, and that's why Congress needed to give them such a significant increase in money. And not just criminal aliens, but all types of deportable aliens. And if you think about it, pre-Biden, the estimated population of deportable aliens here ranged anywhere from 11 million to over 20 million pre-Biden. And It's because we looked the other way at the so-called small immigration violations, someone who snuck across the border or overstayed a visa or worked without authorization or committed identity or document fraud. And that resulted, after decades, in 11 to over 20 million people living here illegally. We can't keep looking the other way. And so all types of deportable aliens need to be on the table, as Tom Homan says, when it comes to deportations. They're starting with the worst, but no one should be off the table.
Yeah, understood. And Lora Riles, let everybody who's listening know how they can find you on the internet and keep up to speed with the amazing work you're doing at the Center for Border Security and Immigration at Heritage.
Yeah, they can either go to at heritage.org or follow me on X, Twitter, at Lora, Lora _RIES.
Outstanding. Well, I want to thank you for making the time to be here. I appreciate your expertise and your analysis. Godspeed to you. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you, Rich. Take care.
You bet. Thank you. And amigos, we come back with the rest of your phone calls and more straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America, you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company this evening, and looking forward to speaking with you guys. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And in addition to the immigration stuff we've been talking about, we were talking about this ongoing situation in California, redistricting, gerrymandering, right? California coming into the fold saying, hey, if you do this, we'll do this, right? And Governor Newsom saying that if Texas adds 5 seats, we're going to make a move and similarly add seats. And it's been this back and forth tug of war. Even I think even J.B. Pritzker weighing in at some point on what Illinois is expected to offer to that equation, right? And it's just a lot of smack talking, giving everybody a platform, a political platform to to talk their smack. But today, things took a little different route, where you've got Governor Gavin Newsom talking about neutralizing Texas if they go ahead and redistrict things. Listen to Governor Gavin Newsom. Check this out.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. It's time to recognize that democracy is at risk. It's time to, dare I say, do the right thing. Actually, see how that feels for you, doing the right thing. If you don't, California will neutralize anything you do in the state of Texas. California will continue to punch above its weight. We believe in democracy. We believe in the enduring values of our founding fathers. 249 years. We're not going to sit back passively. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire with fire.
Nobody gives a good speech filled with platitudes and demagoguery like good old Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, that's what Newsom's saying from California. Now, here's what Governor Abbott is saying in Texas. He says, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, Texas has the ability to start eliminating Democrats, and we've got the ability to eliminate 10 of them. 10 Democrats in our state. He told this to Jake Tapper. Listen to this.
Are you not worried at all about a redistricting, gerrymandering arms race going on? And theoretically, is it not just better for voters to be picking their politicians instead of politicians to be picking their voters through gerrymandering?
Well, to be clear, listen, all those big blue states, they've already gerrymandered. Look at the map of Illinois. Look at the map of California, New York, and Massachusetts, and so many other blue states. They gerrymandered a long time ago. They got nothing left with regard to what they can do. And know this, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, listen, Texas has the ability to eliminate 10 Democrats in our state. We can play that game more than they can because they have fewer Republican districts in their states.
And that is the key here, right? This is the key. They're trying to play this game, but he's 100% right. There is a balance in, I would say there is even a discrepancy, right? It's not even balanced. You've got more people that voted for Republicans that have a Republican representing them in their government. And that's disproportionate, right? That is very disproportionate. I don't know if I said that right. Let me repeat that so that everybody gets what I'm saying. But again, if you have, you really just got to divvy up the number of congressional districts you have in Texas by how many seats they have altogether and how many are Democrat versus Republican versus the percentage of people that voted for Trump, let's say, right? That's I think, a fair number. People that said, all right, we voted Republican in this last election. And one would think this many people that voted for Republican in the last election, at least somehow close to that number, would be the amount of congressional districts they have, or even state districts they have, where there's representation that are Republicans. But that's not the case. Now, that is the case on the other side of the aisle, because they're almost exclusively Democrat. So there's clearly a discrepancy, right? These are things that just don't work for the people. You've got people that have literally voted for Republicans, but because the map's already drawn and it's an older map, they're going ahead and saying, well, we're going to give you more Democrat representation despite the fact that we have more people voting for Republicans. It's oxymoronic. It doesn't make sense. It's incongruent. And that's what the governor's talking about. So kudos to him for saying what he said. And again, they have that ability because they do have the advantage. And I think that's fantastic. So you just heard it, and I wanted to make sure you guys had a chance to hear that juxtaposition between Gavin Newsom and Governor Abbott, because it's very telling. It's very telling. So I want to know what your thoughts are on this. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company. We're live, we're national, and I want to go to our buddy Paul. Paul's calling us from Boise, Idaho, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Paul, go right ahead, brother.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I came up with this saying in regards to the influx of people that were jumping the borders. And it was a soft.
Did I lose you, Paul?
No. I was just going to say something, but I can't say it anyway. Wouldn't be appropriate. The way that they brought the people over the border had method to the madness. They didn't want you to see the huge influx coming over at one time. They kept it moderate and gave you the false impression that we weren't getting as many people as we were. It was actually quite insidious, and it was a coup is what it was, and it was well drawn out, and it took 3.5 years to do that, and it's probably going to take a lot longer for us to unravel this mess that they left us. As far as I'm concerned, they're communists, plain and simple, to have put that upon the country the way they have.
Yeah, good point. And this is something I've spoken about, and calling it a coup is one way, I guess, of putting it. Some people have called it an invasion. Personally, my view is to really focus on the actual matter at hand, and I would say it could be all of the above, right? And depending on how you make the argument, but ultimately, I really do believe that the cartels make their money smuggling things across the border, right? That's their forte is distribution, whether it's the distribution of marijuana, cocaine, fentanyl, pills, people, children for sex, children for labor, right? They move things across the border. That's what they do. Distribution is the name of the game, not production, but distribution. And they control this border. And I believe that this thing that we saw during the Biden years really was the largest slave trade, the largest human smuggling operation in America, funded by the United States government under the watch of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They oversaw this biggest human smuggling operation ever, and it's shameful to think that that's happening in this day and age, but there's not many other ways of pitching that. What a disgrace. Anyway, stick with me, folks. We're coming right back. I've got a few more things to discuss with you, a little bit about my days, things that are happening in Jersey, things that are happening in other parts of the country. We're going to talk about the latest in the tech world and so much more on the news of the day. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, Here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you this Tuesday night. We're live and national. The phone number, if you want to join us on our late-night town hall conversation all across America at 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4 And the left may have gone just a little bit too far to the left in New Jersey. Why? Well, because the laws are just getting out of control. Check this out. This Jersey law now has parents outraged over what could happen to them because of their kids' bad behavior. Moms and dads, parents all across New Jersey, particularly in Gloucester Township, they passed a resolution in July called Minors and Parents' Responsibility. And it basically stipulates that parents are going to be held accountable for public disturbances caused by their child and could go to jail for 3 months if their kids are found guilty of multiple offenses. And of course, parents don't want any part of it. They're feeling outraged. Alex Bauer, who we've had on this program before, she's chair of the Bergen County chapter of Parents' Rights and Moms for Liberty. She told the New York Post earlier today that they're getting attacked from every angle here. The ordinance is the result of a massive brawl that broke out last year. About 500 minors at the Gloucester the Gloucester Township drone show. It's a daytime event. And interestingly, 11 people, including 9 teenagers, were arrested. Some cops were hurt. It was a big old fight. So now they've passed this law. It says, hey, if your kid acts up, we take you to jail. And me personally, I mean, my gut tells me, I think that's a pretty good thing. But some of the parents are upset. Now, these juvenile offenses that fall under the law are pretty broad. And here's why people are upset. There's 28 in total. One being disorderly persons, immorality, destruction of playground equipment, loitering, and as well as assault, mugging, drunkenness, and drug dealing. So if a child is repeatedly found guilty in juvenile court, their caretaker could face up to 90 days in prison and or a fine of up to $2,000. And this is according to the Gloucester Police in a recent statement clarifying the law that was passed. Police Chief David Harkins says that the law consisted of general legal language and that parents would receive a warning first for their kids' bad behavior. Saying, quote, our ordinance was actually sampled from other towns, the chief said, referring to the Jersey Shore's Wildwood, which is a town on the Jersey Shore, which has also seen an increase of crazy teen behavior, saying we're not necessarily the first, but we're probably going to be the biggest town to adopt this type of policy. So fascinating to me that it took this long, right? Because the Jersey Shore is a good place, despite what you've seen on the television show. And again, things were nice back in the television show. You know, you might have seen a couple of kids that were growing up, coming of age, drinking, getting into a few things on the beach. But it wasn't what it is today, right? You know, Snooki and The Situation and Pauly D, these people that were on the hit MTV television show, which I'm a huge fan of, by the way. None of these people ever had a gun or anything like that. You know, the worst it was a brawl on the boardwalk, and usually a fight that came to them, not a fight that they started. But things as of late at the Jersey Shore have become a little bit challenging, right? There's stabbings I saw over the last over Memorial Day weekend, and I was at Seaside Heights today on the boardwalk, had a great time, enjoyed plenty of great food, and it's always, you know, scary when you think everything is dandy. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you see that there's helicopters around. 5 swimmers were rescued yesterday with one of them drowning and dying. I mean, this is really not cool, right? But these are things that come with these with the big waves that you get down there in the Jersey Shore. So why do I bring all this up? Right? Well, because I think people are out there for the summertime, right? There's people all across America. When you go down the Jersey Shore, you meet people from everywhere, not just people from New Jersey that are enjoying the beach. So at some point, if you're interested, I want to hear your thoughts, your stories on the Jersey Shore, including those of the TV show. Like I said, that's probably one of my favorite TV shows, one of my guilty pleasures that I use to kind of just forget, the latest that's going on. Speaking of the latest, inflation coming in yet again, I think second, third month, fourth month maybe, lower than expected. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. Also, E.J. Antoni giving an interview, of which now he can only do a few interviews because he's going through that vetting process for the new job that he's got as commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And he says that until they figure out how to get the jobs report right, they shouldn't be doing it every month. We should likely do it every quarter so that if adjustments need to be made, you could do it within the quarter rather than sending the markets into some sort of frenzy because of information that isn't real, like the Biden administration did over and over and over, up to and including one adjustment on the jobs report that was 825,000 jobs approximately. When you mess up a big number like that, you've got to ask yourself, we've got a problem here, Houston. So kudos to all of them for doing what they do and trying to fix the system that clearly hasn't been serving we the people. And being that I'm talking about the Jersey Shore and a bunch of other things, I want to also share with you a friend of mine that I went to the beach with. I went with a couple of buddies, and he was telling me, he's like, I ordered something from China, and I thought it was going to take a long time to get because of tariffs and whatever else. And he said, but I got it relatively quickly, and when I did, to my surprise, it was coming from the United Arab Emirates by way of China, or China by way of UAE, as a way of likely deterring tariffs. And I thought that was pretty interesting, right? Because they didn't want to have to pay out on the tariffs. They just figured out a different way of shipping it so that these products are not coming from China. They are coming from the UAE, even though they're originally coming from China. So I'm not sure how they're working it out, who's taking a little bit of an L here or there, and who's winning. But I can say it's likely not being passed on to the consumer, and it's definitely something that's going on. The Chinese are going to look for every possibility they can to not have to pay tariffs. Anyway, I want to talk about a couple of things. One of the things I want to talk about in this hour is how big tech companies have spent more on artificial intelligence than the U.S. government has spent on education, jobs, and social services in 25 alone, just this year. 2025, all those three things combined doesn't compare to what big tech is spending on artificial intelligence. So I want to get some perspective on that, what that looks like for the labor market and what that looks like for all of us as Americans, we the people. So if you're listening first time, you want to give us a call, I welcome it. If you want to just listen, you could do that too. But I'm curious to know your thoughts on all of this stuff, on inflation, of course, any stories you have about the Jersey Shore, as well as on AI and the impact that it's having when you see stuff like, these numbers that we're talking about here, where you've got tech companies spending more on AI than the U.S. government has spent on education, jobs, and social services combined in 2025. So keep it locked right here, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Is massive AI spending paying off for big tech? Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all pouring billions of dollars into artificial intelligence. Meta plans to spend $105 billion by next year, Microsoft even more, $120 billion by the end of 2025. Amazon isn't far behind. That money goes on building data centers, massive warehouses of servers that power AI. Earlier this year, investors were getting nervous about all that spending. Was AI really worth it? That's all changed now. Microsoft has become only the second ever company to be worth $4 trillion. Meta jumped 11% in one day to just under $2 trillion. But how exactly is AI making them money? For Meta, it makes it easier for them to target ads more precisely to your Facebook and Instagram. Users are now seeing 11% more ads than last year, and Meta can charge more for them. Not everyone's winning, though. Amazon spent more than its rivals on AI in the last 3 months, and yet its shares are down. The reason is that Microsoft and Google are ahead of it in the cloud computing business. And Apple is under pressure to spend more. Investors think it's lagging behind.
So that's a little report on the state of AI spending. And of course, you're seeing spending on AI come in it feels like every week President Trump announces a new $100 billion deal on AI spending throughout our country. And I want to get to the bottom of this because I feel like the big tech companies are spending more on artificial intelligence than the government is. And this is interesting to me. So I want to do that with somebody who's a pro. He was the tech editor at Breitbart News, and he's absolutely terrific. Allum Bokhari is now managing director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. He's got an amazing book. He used to have an amazing column at Breitbart, and he's got tremendous work that's on his current website, the Foundation for Freedom Online. And you definitely have to check that out at foundationforfreedomonline.com. Allum Bokhari, welcome back.
Good evening. Great to be back.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. And I want to get into this with you because, it makes sense that people are spending money on AI. It's a big thing. I think, AI is the way we're doing a whole lot of things in the future. Crypto is the way we're going to measure a lot of our finances in the future. All of those things make sense to me, but I think there's a lot of people that just don't have a lot of answers. But I think you do have some of those answers. Talk to us about how some of these big tech companies are outspending the federal government when it comes to AI.
Well, it's really interesting that we have this sort of arms race in AI. Everyone's trying to be the top AI company. And I think there's a big reason for that. Whoever controls AI will control the future. And that also explains why the Trump administration is putting such a big emphasis on it as well. If you look at the president's action plan on AI that came out, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, national security is the number one reason that the administration gives for its huge emphasis on AI, for its decision to roll back some of those Biden-era emphases on safety and guardrails and push forward with just accelerating this technology and making sure America is the best in the world at this technology. Because AI is going to be everywhere. It's going to be in military systems. It's going to be across the entire economy. So whichever nation gets that lead in AI first, and America currently has the lead, but whoever maintains that lead is going to have an insurmountable advantage over its geopolitical rivals. And I think that's why you see the administration placing such a big emphasis on it. Companies as well, the reason they're spending so much on it is because you look at the impact AI has already had. I remember when I was writing at Breitbart, it was accepted as a given that Google was the most powerful tech company, the most successful tech company. Google was unbeatable. That's changed in just a few years because of AI. These large language models have almost made Google search obsolete because you can get such better answers on any questions you might have through ChatGPT or even through Grok or these other AI models. And that's really given Google a big knock because, it used to be their search engine that take a question to. Now it's AI models.
Makes a lot of sense. And I'm wondering, you're being in the tech space and understanding that a lot better than I. Are you getting a lot of pushback, a lot of people that are afraid of, oh my gosh, I don't want to get replaced by AI, people kind of freaking out about, how their job could be done more efficiently?
Well, yeah, I mean, not me personally in terms of people I know, but
Right.
you see this happening across the economy. You see it especially happening in Hollywood. The big strike last year, I believe it was the Writers Guild strike, and the actors went on strike as well because they were concerned that Hollywood studios were trying to muscle them out to bring in AI to essentially replace them, because AI can, create a likeness of an actor, create a likeness of an actor's voice. It can be used for screenwriting as well. So there was a lot of concern in the entertainment industry, especially about the disruption that AI is going to cause. And actually, the biggest AI lawsuit right now is Disney and NBC Universal suing Midjourney, which is an AI model that generates images. So these two big Hollywood companies are accusing Midjourney of, essentially violating their copyright whenever it generates an image. It's sort of like, I'm not sure I buy the case that Disney is making there, because they're sort of saying like, well, if you imagine one of our intellectual, if you imagine Mickey Mouse and then you draw something that's a bit like Mickey Mouse, then you're violating our copyright. That doesn't actually violate copyright. And that's sort of how image generating AI works. So that's the case they're making there. But they're making that case, I think, because they recognize that AI is sort of an existential threat to their business model.
Good point. It's an existential threat to their business model. Do you think it's an existential threat to national security?
Well, it's an existential threat if foreign countries are able to develop advanced AI faster than the United States. That certainly would be a detriment to U.S. national security, because AI is going to have a huge impact in the world of cybersecurity. And, technically this is a little bit over my head, but, everyone I've talked to in the security sphere is very, very worried about how AI can be used by hackers, by malign foreign agents, just because it increases the capacity of a regular schmegular human programmer by so much. That's going to mean that hackers are going to have these, more sophisticated tools at their disposal, and cybersecurity will have to counter that. So if too wide of a gap opens up between America and one of its adversaries in the AI race, you could see a lot more successful cyber attacks against American infrastructure.
Fascinating point. Allum Bokhari is the author of Deleted: Big Tech's Battle to Erase a Movement and Subvert Democracy. And we're going to continue this conversation on AI because I think it's a very interesting perspective. It's not only changing the economic landscape, but it, in the wrong hands, can pose a big national security problem, as we've seen. And I'm wondering, how do you curtail all of that? Is it all virtue, or is there more to it? And I want to do that straight ahead when we return with Allum Bokhari. Allum Bokhari is our guest, former Breitbart tech editor, and now at the Foundation for Freedom Online. So keep it locked right here, folks. It's Rich Valdez. We're coming right back with Allum Bokhari.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Earlier this week, we were alerted to a potential vulnerability in our DoD computer systems, and we've been checking into it ever since. It turns out that some tech companies have been using cheap Chinese labor to assist with DoD cloud services. This is obviously unacceptable, especially in today's digital threat environment. Now, this was a legacy system created over a decade ago during the Obama administration. But we have to ensure the digital systems that we use here at the Defense Department are ironclad and impenetrable. And that's why today I'm announcing that China will no longer have any involvement whatsoever in our cloud services, effective immediately. And at my direction, the department will also initiate, as fast as we can, a 2-week review or faster to make sure that what we uncovered isn't happening anywhere else across the DoD. We will continue to monitor and counter all threats to our military infrastructure and online networks. And I want to thank all those Americans out there in the media and elsewhere who raised this issue to our attention so we could address it. And that's why we're talking to you today. As the president would say, thank you for your attention to this matter, and God bless our warfighters. I'm going to sign that memo right now, initiating that review.
That's Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announcing that the DoD is removing any Chinese engineers from working on DoD anything. And to me, that makes all the sense in the world, but I'm just a layman. I want to bring in one of the pros here, Allum Bokhari. He's managing director at the Foundation for Freedom Online. He was a tech editor in the past with Breitbart and has written a tremendous book called Deleted. And Allum Bokhari, when you hear the secretary talk about this, is this much ado about nothing, or as I see it, seems like a really good idea that to fix this problem, and it likely should never have happened in the first place. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, it's a good idea to fix it, and it's telling from that segment we heard that this started in the Obama administration. The United States security establishment really was sleeping on the China threat until President Trump came along and made it a big issue, first in the 2016 primaries, and ever since then it's been front and center in the national security conversation. But before that, it really wasn't. So I can understand how something like this could have started in the Obama administration when we still had that sort of extreme free trade orthodoxy that you can just source materials and manpower from anywhere in the world, and that won't later come back to bite you in a national security sense or in any other sense. And it's definitely a good idea that this is getting fixed. And I think there's been a recognition over the past 2 decades that, or the past decade at least, that there's a serious supply chain issue that arose because of those free trade orthodoxies, and so little is being sourced in America, and things that are critical to national security are not being sourced in America either.
You know, Allum Bokhari, I look at this, and I think you said it well, and I think very generously. I tend to think a little bit worse of the Chinese and Democrats that allow the Chinese to run amok, and not because of their nationality, but because of their communist sympathies. And the issue here, I think, I guess my question to you is, do you believe that this was people just asleep at the wheel? Do you think it could have been something more nefarious, as you said in your book, to subvert democracy?
I think the incentives to outsource to China was so great in the first half of this century that every company just did it, and people were making so much money. And this also converted into political influence as well. Politicians didn't want to do anything because you had all of these businesses that were exploiting the free trade system, that were taking manufacturing to China, that were sourcing everything from China. They were putting Americans out of jobs by doing so. So there was just, I think, this general collective sense not to upset the apple cart because everyone was making a lot of money at the expense of America. And it really took someone like Trump to come along and break that consensus, which he did very effectively, I think, in his first run. And China's has been a growing priority ever since then. But you also have to remember, at the start of the millennium, China caught up to the United States incredibly quickly. At the start of the millennium, it was still pretty far behind. And this all happened, I think, because, like I said, the incentives of moving offshore combined with the free trade orthodoxy that dominated both political parties in that era, it is what led to this situation.
Allum, your mic, I think, is trailing off a little bit. If you could make an adjustment. But I wanted to ask you one follow-up question there, and that is the Chinese, there was the whole influence they had with TikTok and ByteDance and all that stuff. And we saw, when it came to Microsoft in the past, there was the email issue with Microsoft. Then we saw the whole SolarWinds issue. And it seems like I feel like we're not learning from our mistakes, or are these so different that I'm just being too hard on our government?
No, companies need to be reminded sometimes that American companies need to be reminded occasionally that it's not just about increasing profits, that they also have an obligation to the country that has allowed them to thrive and prosper, and that means sometimes saying no to the Chinese. I remember just a decade or so ago, Google was developing a censored search engine for use in the Chinese market. So they wanted access to that market, and you see other tech giants as well, like Apple, which still manufacture in China. Microsoft has R&D facilities in China, and yeah, I mean, the consensus on China has only just shifted. So we're just now seeing the damage that has been done by allowing the problem to be ignored for so long.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Allum Bokhari, if anybody wants to check out your website and see the work that you're producing at the Foundation for Freedom Online, where do they go and how do they follow you on socials?
You can follow me on X at Allum Bokhari, and you can find our reports at foundationforfreedomonline.com. We just have a new report up just a couple of weeks ago on the UK's Online Safety Act, a new draconian censorship law that's already affecting American companies.
Well, tell me a little bit about that before you go, because we have to always check the ugly head of censorship as soon as it rears itself. What's going on there?
We certainly do. The UK just passed this huge censorship law. They implemented it. It's in force now, and it imposes fines of up to 10% of global revenue on any tech company, any tech platform, even private messaging platforms that violate UK law on things like hate speech and misinformation, which it will as well. And several American companies have already gotten threatening letters from the UK's internet regulator in relation to this law. The law even allows, in extreme cases, for UK authorities to jail executives of tech companies that don't comply with the regulations. So you have a situation where employees of American companies could be put in jail in the UK for not following UK speech codes on hate speech and misinformation.
And, for the record, I think it's... or for reference, I should say, the UK has some pretty strict laws. It's not the United States. They don't have the same kind of free speech that we do, and yet it looks like they're making it even stricter.
100%. They don't have a First Amendment, and it is getting worse in the UK. The situation is getting worse. There are, I believe, average of 800 people arrested every year for speech crimes. Thought crimes, essentially. People get knocked, something like the police will come to your door in the UK if you've made the wrong sort of post on Facebook. Usually, this is happening increasingly with posts related to the situation with illegal immigration in the UK. That's being, people who post about that are often caught up in this web of hate speech laws and get harassed by the authorities. And like you said, they're taking it even further with this Online Safety Act.
Now, Allum Bokhari, everybody listening to you can hear that you have a very thick New York City accent, and you may not know too much about Europe. But when you see these things happening, and I've seen some of these videos, and I've seen videos of people absolutely just, going nuts on the subway over really odd behavior by some of these illegal migrants that are in the UK. How big of a problem is this, and why is the government, from your opinion, your perspective, why are they stopping people from talking about it instead of allowing this discourse to occur?
I think the government doesn't know I think the government realizes that they don't have a leg to stand on. The polling of the current government is led by a left-wing party called Labour. It plummeted shortly after they came to power just a year ago because they haven't dealt with this migration situation, because they haven't dealt with the fact that the country is getting swamped. They're getting millions and millions of people in across the border, and this is a country of, I believe, around 60 million people. So that's a fifth of the United States, and they're still getting millions of people coming across. So I think what we're seeing with these protests, which are now happening every weekend, on the migration issue is that Britain is really reaching a boiling point. And that's why the government is so concerned about censoring people, about stopping them from organizing online, from speaking online about this issue, because they know the public opinion situation is getting worse and worse and worse for them. And if you look at the polling, actually, if an election were held today in the UK, Nigel Farage's party would come to power in a landslide. It would be the first time in over almost a century that neither Labour nor the Conservatives would be the winner of the election. That's how radically things are changing in the UK.
It's like a big MAGA movement over there. It wouldn't be MAGA though in the UK, but it's interesting to see how it's unfolding. People are tired. Allum Bokhari, thank you for bringing us up to speed on all of that. Folks, check out the website, foundationforfreedomonline.com, and give Allum Bokhari a follow on all of the social media. Allum, I want to thank you for coming and for being a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
Rich, thanks for having me on.
You bet. My pleasure. And amigos, your thoughts, your calls, your reactions, and a couple more things I've got up my sleeve straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Listen, I like your show. It's the best night show there is. I think you got the best spirit, the best emotions. You're real. You're really a good guy.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This scramble to build AI infrastructure has really morphed into a credit race. CoreWeave is, of course, the poster child. The cloud company uses the GPUs it already has as collateral to get loans to buy even more GPUs. They also use traditional debt. It now carries more than $17 billion in funding commitments, much of it debt at double-digit interest rates. And some of that risk is offset by longer-term contracts, yes, with OpenAI and Microsoft. But the company is still racing to build revenue before their debt catches up to them. XAI, Elon Musk's AI venture, is following a similar playbook. According to Morgan Stanley, it raised $10 billion in July, half of that in debt, and is reportedly seeking another $12 billion. With limited operating history, they're using unconventional collateral to secure financing, including its Grok model IPs, which powers Musk's social media platform. So AI just isn't really driving innovation, it's rewriting the playbook for how tech companies borrow, collateralize, and scale.
So AI is, again, the topic of conversation, and there's so much interesting stuff going on here. Right now, you've got a company called Perplexity. It's an AI company that is trying to purchase the browser that Google put out called Chrome. This is a big thing. They're looking to pay. I wish I could take calls on this. Your guesses on what you think they're going to pay for the Chrome browser. But I guess we probably could if anybody's interested. But I would have guessed something like a couple of $1 billion, like, 5 or less. But nope, it's a lot more than that. About almost 7 times that amount. $34.5 billion is what they're offering. This company, Perplexity, is offering that to Google to purchase their browser, Chrome. Blows me away that this is like that. It shows you how much I don't know about stuff, right? And I'm thinking, you spent $34.5 billion for this thing that, has a lot of users, obviously. And you can make money through advertising, and you'll have access to information that you can go and sell. So I get it. But, wow, $34.5 billion is what this thing is worth. This is fascinating to me. Anyway, some of the top line here. And it's a startup, by the way. Perplexity is a startup offering Google $34.5 billion. They say that venture investors have proposed funding this deal. So they've already gotten their money. And the Department of Justice has proposed that Google divest Chrome, as part of the antitrust suit the company lost this year. So, very interesting. Get rid of Chrome and, hopefully you'll be in better shape. Fascinating to me. Anyway, I'm going to get to your calls and more momentarily. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. But very interesting to me that, Google didn't respond to this, really. The value of this current company, this Perplexity, is valued at $18 billion. Where they're going to come up with double the amount to buy this, it's not an extension, it's a whole browser, is just beyond me at this point. The company was valued earlier this year at $14 billion before they made the offer. So it seems that it's gone up, but not enough, right? At least from my perspective, it's not. So I don't know. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, your thoughts on everything else we're talking about. So I see the calls are here. I ran out of time in this segment. Otherwise, I would get to your calls right now, but I'm going to get to you momentarily. The phone number, at 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez taking your calls. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And let's go. Let's go to the phones. I want to go to Ohio, WHIZ. Let's go to Paul calling us from Zanesville, Ohio. Paul, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, good evening, Rich. Nice to speak with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Rich, as far as legal immigration goes, don't come here illegally. Do it the proper way. But I have to tell you something that I witnessed Friday. I watched probably 15 or 20. My wife at first thought they was Amish or something because they had on the big hats and stuff. But I got my binoculars out, Rich, and I live close to a shopping center. And I watched these guys that started like at 7 in the morning. And by 8 o'clock, they put a whole new roof on this shopping center. Now, it's about 200-300 feet long. And I watched 15 to 20 of these guys put the whole roof on in one day. So these not everybody is bad that's a legal immigrant. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But if
Listen,
you just done it
I've seen that too. Some of these guys can do amazing roofing work, and other skills as well, Paul.
Oh yeah, like in agriculture, they get out there, they pick. I've seen them in long sleeves and dark shirts, but that's where they come from, right? So they're used to it, And I'm not being racist or anything here. But a lot of these people are good workers, Rich. I spent over 35 years doing electrical work and worked with a lot of these people. And they're not bad people. They just coming to our country the wrong way. And the Biden administration, they just made it worse, by letting all these people in. I understand. I listen to you every night, Rich, 5 nights a week. And, with the trafficking and the cartels and so forth, that's all bad. But a lot of these people are here to work.
Listen, I'm with you. It's a very fair point, and I think that there is a significant number of them. And I think when it comes to the enforcement operations there, I would suspect that President Trump is going to come up with an express way of dealing with that to alleviate that, because I think he wants them here just as much as many others do. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long. Happy to be here with you. Blessed to be on this microphone. We're back for another hour. It's really a blessing. And our phone number, if you want to join us, 7 minutes past the top of the hour. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. And I want to get into a number of things. Really, there's a number of things that are going on tonight. And again, not so much on the serious side of things. I think there's a bunch of crazy things that we're seeing in the news, and I want to speak about those. And I really want to get your input. I know that every now and again I get I was going to say I get a little long-winded. Oh, that's kind of what I do. But I get long-winded and I get more time than you guys get. And I want to make sure I share some of that time with you all because that's a critique that I get every now and again. People saying, oh, you don't take enough calls. Well, here's the number, 833-482-5337. Open Phone America starts right now. We're going to get your opinion on lots of different things. And one of the things I want to start off with here is humor. Now, every now and again, I get accused of being somewhat having a good sense of humor. And listen to this article. It's not a new one, but it's a really interesting one. It's a little bit of a flashback here. Humor makes you a better parent. This is according to Penn State, saying that it's very effective. Now, everybody knows raising kids is no joke. And we were talking a couple of nights ago about Generation Z, how some of them are bringing their parents to a job interview, right? So we did that segment here, and we had some good conversation about it. And then that night at midnight Eastern time, I got off, and my daughter was working a late shift, not that night, the following day, till like 11 p.m. at a luxury building where she was working as a concierge. Now, she has this job, and she'd worked in a different building, but this was the first night she was working in that building. They had moved her to this building to cover somebody that was out. And, you know, I just checked on her and said, hey, you good? Do you need anything? And she's like, well, I could eat. And I said, all right, I'll bring you something to eat. So I brought her something to eat, dropped it off because she can't really leave the desk where she is until it's, the end of her shift. And she gives me this look and I'm like, how's it going? She's like, well, it's all right. But she's like, there's a gentleman in the corner there that, got here a while ago and asked for somebody. And when I asked the guest, so-and-so, your guest so-and-so is here. They said, oh, no, he can't come in. We're not letting him in. And to be polite, she didn't say, hey, they're refusing you and you can't come in. She said, they're not available. They're not accepting any guests right now. And the guy said, oh, okay. And he just sat down and waited. So he came back a few minutes later and said, hey, can you try again? She tried again, and she said, yeah, they're not accepting any guests right now. And he stayed there. And so she, sought some guidance from her, supervisor one. And I stuck around because I was like, making sure she was a little nervous about this. And her higher-ups tell her that there was an incident with this guy and that he's tried to gain access to this building several times. He has a family member that lives in the building, but it's the family member saying that they don't want him there. So, the advice they give her is call the police. Now she's nervous because she's like, I got to call the police. This guy's standing, 12 feet away from me. He can hear me making the call. And I said, well, I'm here. I'll go to the bathroom while I'm here. But I'm thinking, had I not been there dropping off this food for her, my Gen Z baby, then what would have happened, right? And I don't know. I don't know the outcome of that. I can't tell the future. But I was laughing in my mind saying, here I am talking about the Gen Z people bringing their parents to an interview, and here I am being a helicopter dad, not leaving after I drop off her lunch. And I thought it was very funny. But this is part of the I guess, the joys of child rearing that you go through. And I stood there for a while. I didn't say anything. I didn't, get involved in any way. I just made sure I was there just in case, it went sideways. And she did have to she was instructed to go and tell the guy, sir, you're going to have to leave. And if you don't leave, we're going to have to call the police. And I thought, those are the right words to escalate a situation, right? But she said it, and the guy said, okay, thank you. He said, that's not necessary. I'll leave. He said, could you just try one more time? because, I just called them and they said to come over. So she did, to appease the guy, try again, and got the same response. And then he did eventually leave, and he was very polite. And he said, "I apologize. I didn't mean to cause you any trouble. I hope I didn't inconvenience you at all." He said, "I'm just going through something with my family or whatever." And and I felt bad for the guy that he's on this you can't come here list, but he is. And my 4'11", 19-year-old who's working this summer to save up money until school starts again in like 10 or 12 days, she was my concern. So I bring up that story because of parenting, right? And I don't know how humor makes me a better parent in that situation, but according to Penn State, humor makes you a better parent. And they say that it can teach people cognitive flexibility to relieve stress and promote creative problem solving and resilience. Now, I love that. I want all my children, I only have 2, but I want them both to be creative problem solvers and be confident and whatnot. So according to this Penn State study, if you are funny and you can crack a joke, then you are being an effective parent. Who would have thunk it, right? Another piece that it brings up is that in a survey of over 2,000 moms and dads with kids under the age of 6, they found that the majority of adults, 92%, feel that engaging in playful activity with your kid is important for their overall growth and development. They also indicated that silly fun times like dancing, playing catch, getting into a game of duck, duck, goose, and other things of that nature are great ways to share, some laughs with your kids. And I think I did all those things when my kids were little, right? That's the time to play with your kids and to be silly. So I think most parents are hitting the nail on the head here, at least from what I can tell, my assessment. But it was just interesting to me to see that being humorous makes you a better parent. And I guess that's probably a good thing, because I think I was a lot more serious when my kids were young, because, I was married still. I didn't earn enough. You have a house, you're trying to pay it off. You have some cars, you're trying to pay those off. You have all sorts of bills, right? I think the stress piles up. Your kids are little. That adds to your stress level. And instead of it being the most joyous time, I think it's like the most stressful time, because you've got to deliver and you've got a lot of people counting on you. At least that's how it felt for me. And I look back at that. I think now I don't feel like that. I feel like the way they're describing. Now I can crack a joke and go, it's all right, no biggie. But, I was a lot more high-strung back then. And that's probably not a good thing, but that's the truth. Anyway, final point on this piece here. A staggering 58% of Americans that are age 40 or older say that their best friend is their mom or dad. How about that? And a poll, this poll that I'm talking about was conducted in June of last year. And it was conducted in honor of something that they call National Day of Joy. I didn't even know such a thing existed. So anyway, it's a thing. You also have, let me see here, 300 people ranging in age from 18 to 45 determined that humor not only positively affects an adult's relationship with their parents, but that it also benefits their bond with their own children. That's the bottom line there. And more than half of them said they were raised by people who used humor. 71.8%, so almost 72%, feel that humor is probably one of the most effective parenting tools. Look at that. Again, I would never have thought that was the number, And I think both my parents did have some good humor, but they were also heavy-handed. And that might have been more effective than them cracking jokes. So I want to know your thoughts. Should we be funny or firm, right? That's one question. The other one is that New Jersey law that I mentioned, where parents can go to jail for up to 90 days for their kids breaking any number of 9 different offenses locally. Should that be implemented in your state? Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at with Rich Valdez.
Look at Rich Valdez. He's now a radio host, and he's a great radio host.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Going straight to your calls. Open phone. America is here. But let's talk about you, we the people. I'm going to go to Jeff, Nevada City, California, KSFO. Go for it.
Good to hear you, Rich.
Likewise,
I'm
brother.
out here
Thank
in
you.
Nevada. Listen, I'm in Nevada County, California, Nevada City, way up here in Northern California. Now, here's what happens out here. We got swarms of kids on these electric skateboards, and electric bicycles. And when they're off school or cutting school or doing homeschooling or wherever nobody's paying attention to them, they're swarming out into the country and they're doing little robberies. The cops are catching some of them, running them up against the fence and catching a bucket full of goodies that they got out of somebody's shed or whatever. But, 2-3 kids would jump on some old dude and take his damn car. Just a mob robbing. They go to the county fair, and it's like, yeah, it's fair game. Go jump on some old dude. Hassle the hell out of them. And there's no accountability. It's terrible. They get jammed up in juvenile court, and they never post the names, so you can't follow up and go down there and find out who they are.
Well, similarly, just recently, just to add, there was that big brawl that broke out. I forget where it was, but it was a bunch of teenagers and a husband and a wife. And the wife was all banged up. She got knocked out, and girls were involved and everything. And most of those people, I think there was 15 people involved, and they were minors. So, yeah, you're right. A lot of times minors are doing whatever they want to do. They're not charged as adults. Their names don't become publicized. Nobody can really go after them. They're not accountable. And in reality, we have I say we because, it affects all of us. But there is an accountability problem, I think, I believe it's generational, right? I feel like certain younger generations that didn't grow up the way many of us did, where you had to respect your neighbor, you say hello to people, you look at them in their face, you shake their hand. There's a new set of rules, and they take it wherever they want to take it, and they do what they want, and it's very sad to me. But this is the result, and we've seen it with a number of things. I mean, you've seen these fatal car accidents where people are driving like idiots, running people off the road. I saw one video earlier this year or late last year. These two kids are on a joyride, two young kids, 14, 15, 11, and 12, something like that. And they run a guy off the road, and it turns out the guy's a retired police chief, and that became a big deal in the media, and he died. And this is like, wow, what is going on? And then they were laughing in court about it. They didn't care. They had no remorse, not a care in the world for human life. And that is scary. So, maybe we do need to bring that parents need to be held accountable law to California, Jeff.
Well, here's a classic example. Police blotter. Knock on the door. Old man opens the door, and he's got his pistol in his, okay. And when he's got provocatively dressed young lady on his porch, he's like, whoa, hey, hour of the night, what's going on here? There's 4 guys standing behind her ready to come rushing in the house and just jump on the old guy. So he shows them what he's holding, and they all run off and jump in the truck, jam down the road, and crash into a pole. Kids are flying out of the car and out of the truck, but it never got tied back to the attempted rush-in burglary.
Did they try and arrest the old man for brandishing?
And all that. No, hell no. They all ran away, but they crashed their truck.
Well, good on them. Serves them right for doing what they did. I mean, sometimes karma kicks in and it does the right thing. Jeff, thanks for the update. I appreciate it, brother. Keep America over there in Nevada County and in Nevada City. KSFO in the building. Shout out to you guys. And let us continue. Debbie. Debbie's in Canton, Ohio, WNIR. Debbie, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. I'm so glad to talk to you again tonight.
Likewise.
You mentioned karma. I love karma. I just have a concern about my local radio station that I listen to a lot, and I get you on that, and I'm glad I do. I'm really concerned about some of the rhetoric I hear prior to you coming on. It seems to gin people up. You know what I mean? It's violent talk, or like, it goes against the edge. It creeps me out a little bit.
What's violent? Help me understand a little bit.
They talk violently, like spanking AOC and, doing other things violently to other people on the Democratic side. And I'm just saying, we need to tone that down. I'm just saying, I like your style, because you poke fun at people, and that's okay. I get it, but you're not violent. And it seems too violent sometimes prior to you coming on. And I wish they would stop that, because I think we need to stop that, because there's people out there with mental health problems, and they hear this stuff and they get ginned up, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think it needs to tone down a little bit. I know.
Well, here's what I'll say about that part. Again, I don't know who you're talking about, and but I will say, I'm a huge free speech advocate. I think people should be able to say what they want. And I've said this before, but just to give you an understanding, right, of just the way the law works, it's wild. There was a guy I ran against. I ran for office once, 20 years ago, 2005. And that particular guy was a mayor. He was also a state assemblyman. He was double dipping, and he had like a third job at the time. Anyway, this guy got into an argument with somebody, another politician or somebody running against him in a different district or something like that. And he tells the guy, "You want to punch in the nose? You want me to punch you in the nose?" And the guy, they had their argument. The guy sues him and says that the mayor/assemblyman threatened to punch me in the nose. And it goes to court, and the judge decides, no, he only offered you, he asked you, do you want a punch in the nose? Do you want me to punch you in the nose? It was not a threat. He didn't say, I'm going to punch you in the nose. And I found that so interesting. But that's the latitude that you have with your free speech. And I'm pretty sure any professional broadcaster that's out there is saying things probably in jest, like, we've got to spank them at the polls is the implication. So, Debbie, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Thanks for your kind words. Shout out to WNIR. And amigos, we continue with the rest of your calls. Florida, Alabama, Vermont, and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue with your calls. Open Phone America, a time-honored tradition on this program. Started way back in 1978. That's the year I was born, by the way, by Larry King, who had assumed this time slot from Long John Nebel on the Mutual Broadcasting System, and his newsman went on to carry the torch. Of course, I'm talking about the late, great Jim Bohannon for 3 decades, continuing this late-night national town hall conversation and allowing you and me to make radio magic every night. So I thank them, and I thank you. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And we continue. We continue with this conversation. Now, let's see what we got here. Rick. Rick is in Birmingham, Alabama. I want you to hold on, Rick, because I want you to hear a clip that we have of Mayor Karen Bass, that's the L.A. mayor, commenting on what happened in D.C. Listen to this.
Was a test case, and I think D.C. is a test case as well for the president to say, well, we can take over your city whenever we want, and I'm the commander-in-chief, and I can use the troops whenever we want. I think that is an abuse of our troops, and I think it's an overreach of presidential powers for the president to literally take over law enforcement in a city that has not requested the help. And it's not as though, I mean, the protests that happened in Los Angeles were over about maybe 1 square mile of a 500 square mile city. Wasn't appropriate, wasn't needed.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second, all right? Hang on there, Mayor Bass, because before we get to your call, sir, I just want to make a few points. First of all, unprecedented, not really, because President Nixon made this a rule. Why? Because he needed it, right? That was back in 1973. So I would say that it's not. But okay, we'll let you take the unprecedented one if you really want. The bigger question is they didn't ask for help. Do they need to? Do they need to ask for help if she's the mayor and he is the de facto governor in his role as president? You tell me. So you're the manager of whatever, and the owner of the place comes and says, I'm going to do this. And now you're going to be like, this was not needed, sir. I mean, you could do that, but who cares what you have to say, right? I mean, you've been overruled here. There's nobody filing lawsuits against Trump saying he's outside of his authority. There's a whole law saying that he can do this, section and everything. Even the Muriel Bowser, if you've seen the press conference today, she said, sure, we're cooperating. We're happy to work with them, blah, 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 blah. Even when they asked their police chief, the woman who's police chief, they asked her, media asked her, what is the chain of command? She said, I don't know what that is. And Mayor Bowser had to take over and say, we're working with the president, of course, because he is the de facto governor. And his proxy in this case is the attorney general. So when you hear this rhetoric, right, from Karen Bass, this is, you know, again, I guess she gets some points for being creative on trying to make a point here, but this is not a real point, right? This is not a test case. This is not something that President Trump can do in any city he wants. How would he do that? Is he the de facto governor of any other city? No. Other cities have a governor in their state. So saying that I'm the commander-in-chief and I can use the troops whenever I want, that's not true either. Now, it's true that the president can federalize the National Guard, but that's always been true. So you don't need a test case for that. We had a whole civil war in this country. I mean, the historical illiteracy and constitutional illiteracy is astounding. And for Mayor Karen Bass, I don't think it's illiteracy. I think she's just willfully trying to fool people. So when she says it's an overreach of presidential powers, then why aren't you suing him? Why aren't you, instead of answering this question in the media or making this statement saying, that's why today we filed a lawsuit that we expect to go to the Supreme Court because it's violating X, Y, and Z of, you know, the Constitution. This violates separation of powers. No, it doesn't. Right? It's literally a law. So they're fake, they're phony, and they're fraud. And that's all I can say. They're upset that Trump is doing a better job at playing their game than they do. They've given him the tools to play this game, and he plays it better than they do. And now they're mad. Rick, Birmingham, Alabama, WZRR. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. If they were doing their job, Trump wouldn't have to step in. They're failing. Yeah. They're not providing for domestic tranquility of the people. They're cuddling the criminals and the invaders. People that's invaded this country and are sabotaging their country. They're all in lockstep. They don't care anything about the victims of all the stuff they've done. They don't care about that. They all sit on their hands. They wouldn't stand up for the victims. They're all in lockstep. They all know their place. You know what I'm saying?
I totally get you. Listen, I think they're everybody's in the game for power, right? Everybody's trying to sway popular opinion. Everybody's trying to fool somebody here. And at least this is how I view my view of the left, right? I feel like Republicans are constantly waving their arms saying, no, it's not like that. It's like this. Filtering these attacks of, oh, because you're a racist. Oh, because you're this. Oh, because you're a tyrant. Oh, because you're trying to take a power that isn't yours. Oh, because, Epstein list. Oh, there's always some sort of thing being thrown at you where you're trying to clarify and say, no, it's not that. It's this. While Republicans are really trying to do something, right? Even if it's a big spending bill, and I'm no fan of spending, but it solved problems. It wasn't pure politics. It was something that I think is going to help this country. The Genius Act, something that I think is going to help this country. The Stablecoin Act, the Clarity Act. What else did he sign? I mean, there's so many acts that were just recently signed. The president's been very busy. And these are things that I think are to the betterment of America. So when you hear the Democrats come and they cry about this stuff, I mean, for me personally, it's annoying, right? It's irksome because you think, my goodness, I mean, just stop for a second, and try and do something for the country. Do something for your people, right? Whatever you represent, whoever your constituents are, do something for them. Stop getting on your soapbox to talk about how bad this is and talk about what good you are doing. And lamentably, they never do. I've never heard AOC, all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, ever talk about how she's helping anything. She's always complaining about how unequitable something is. She's always pointing the finger at somebody about how this is unfair because of that. That's unfair because of this. We've got to go after the millionaires. We've got to go. How about, hey, here's what we did today and here's how we're helping. Never. How about, this is why I love America. This is why America's great. This is why America affords opportunities. No, she never talks about that. Why? Because she doesn't love America. She doesn't care about America. She cares about grievances and making this place more difficult than it already is. Rick, Birmingham, Alabama, WZRR. Thank you. I agree with you. Prosecutors need to do what they got to do. We got to put an end to all this crazy and really have conversations that matter. Let me see. Can I keep going? I think I will. Let me see. Lester. Lester wants to weigh in on AI. We were talking about some AI before, artificial intelligence. Lester, Daytona Beach, WTTB. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Rich. I am wary of AI, but I trust AI more than I do other people.
Tell me more.
Well, AI is the love child of my light bulb and my refrigerator, and the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, I think I get what you're putting down here. The advent of technology, it's the latest in technology, and while you don't know this technology per se, you do know technology on the whole, and there's a lot of technology that's come out that's good. And sometimes it can be a little tough to learn or challenging in the beginning. I think AI is unique, though, Lester, in that it can be used for, the dark arts of whatever, the bad guys want to use it for. And that's the part I think we have to be prepared to deal with. Like a year ago, you could tell if something was a deep fake video. Today, you can still tell a little bit, sometimes. Some of these videos I've seen, if I didn't know they were fake, they would fool me. In particular, some of the ones of like Trump in the White House and the things he's saying. And it really sounds like him. It's got the same cadence as him. But for the fact that I've seen those clips and I know what he said on those days because of this show, I would think they were real in some cases. So, or because they're ridiculously funny. Most of the time, it's, parody, it's satire. So, listen, I'm with you, though. I believe that, AI can be used for good in many ways, and I think that there are some people unscrupulously that can use it for bad, just like several people in the last year or two, at least that are coming to mind, have used motor vehicles for bad, right? You could use it for good all day long, transport people, do all sorts of things. But then you get every now and again, who wants to use it as a weapon, their vehicle. And that's the sad part of life, that there is corruption in life, there is evil in life. Sadly, we don't get to control people, but we do get to pray for them. Lester, Daytona Beach, Florida, WTTB. Thank you, my brother, for your thoughts there. And amigos, we come back to your calls and more. California, Vermont. Where's New York? Where is Oregon? Where is Florida? Where is KDKA? Big story that came out of there yesterday. Very sad story. We're going to talk about that Pittsburgh story when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Now to a developing story. One person is dead, another person unaccounted for after a steel plant explosion in Pennsylvania. Tonight, Governor Shapiro warning residents to avoid the area near the U.S. Steel Works plant so the recovery mission can take place. Eyewitness News anchor Joe Torres here with more on what happened today. Joe.
The numbers keep climbing, Sade. In addition to the one worker killed and one missing, there are at least a dozen people injured, 10 of them hospitalized. Take a look at the moment of the first blast caught on camera. This was about 11 a.m. this morning. Thick black smoke then rose from the scene, smoke visible for miles. Down on the ground, much of the plant is now a charred pile of debris. Firefighters were quick to douse the flames, allowing search and rescue efforts to get underway. They have not yet determined the cause of what happened here.
So since then, there's been an update. It's not just one that's been found dead. There was a second person that was missing and has now been found dead as of last night. And that was why I didn't want to talk about this last night, because I know that there was going to be some additional information, and it was still developing. There was a lot going on. It had gone on throughout the day, where they were trapped inside originally and took a long time to take control of the situation. But one of the victims was identified as a father of three, and that sucks, honestly. My condolences to their family. His name, Timothy Quinn, father of three. Condolences to the Quinn family. The other individual has yet to be identified, at least as of the report that I've been given. And this, again, was this explosion at the U.S. Steel facility just southeast of Pittsburgh. So shout out to everybody in KDKA as you guys mourn this. And it's horrible to see, really is. But I want to get your thoughts on this as well as everything else we've been talking about. Let's go to Pops, Atlantic City, New Jersey, WOND. Go right ahead, sir.
Pleasure to listen to you.
Go ahead,
You know, Rich, I'm a big guy. I'm a very big guy, and I'm a very, I can take care of myself. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've walked many a street. I got mugged when I was young, so I learned to defend myself. Okay? I don't understand this stuff that's going on in these cities. Washington, many times they're not safe streets. Why wouldn't anybody, businessman, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, not invite the president to do something to clean up that mess? It's a cesspool. And you can't even go. I had a senator from Puerto Rico, who I know, who came over on a Sunday with his family about 15 years ago outside the Washington Memorial, got armed robbed.
Unbelievable.
Okay? And this is all over the place, and this is supposed to be a tourist destination. Hey, Gavin Newsom and those guys, when you had all these foreign dignitaries coming over to San Francisco a while back, hey, you went and got rid of all the homeless people. Nobody complained about that.
Yeah. You know, Pops, I think you're right. This is one of those things where the Democrats will do anything to consolidate power. So if they have to turn a blind eye to crime, they start making up stories. And they're like, look, somebody's going to do it anyway. You know, we need them. We got to work with this. They want to rig the system, right? A lot of this started with making everybody soft on crime. It's a political problem. If they can say, hey, we don't have a problem here, we're not locking anybody up, we don't have any reports of that, then it didn't happen if you don't arrest people. It's when you start arresting people, then you go, oh, wow, yeah, we had 55 arrests for aggravated assault, 25 for armed robbery, then your stats get messed up. So as long as you don't report these things, they never happened, and you can go on TV with your police commissioner, like Mayor Eric Adams does, and say, we have New York City is a very safe, big city. No, it's a lie. It's a lie. So listen, you're right. Nobody in their right mind is hoping to get carjacked. Nobody in their right mind wants young children to be caught in a crossfire because people are shooting each other in the streets. This whole thing has political roots. And then on top of that, of course, people who are being unscrupulous and immoral and aren't listening to their parents, quite frankly, right? We need this. I say a lot of this stuff just starts in the home. But it's a multifaceted issue, and you bring up a really good point. Thanks, Pops, for the call. Shout out to WOND, 1400 Atlantic City. Great station, by the way. And let us continue. Let's go to, where am I going next? Brad's in, I got to take a pause right here. We'll come right back to Brad and some others. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Let's go to Brad, Bowling Green, Connecticut, WKCT. Brad, quickly, go right ahead.
Well, it's Kentucky, but
Kentucky even better. Bourbon country.
Yeah, the last guest you had on said they were coming across the border in England. Isn't that an island?
Right. So I guess they're coming ashore.
Oh well, okay. I wanted to know who cuts your hair now?
I've been doing my own hair for a long time, but I do go to a barber to get my beard done. I go every week on Friday, and it's a lot of fun just to keep my barbershop tradition alive. But funny question. It's true. I get a hot towel shave. I have a really good time. Brad, thanks for the call, brother. Enjoy the rest of your night. Hope you'll call again soon. And shout out to they flashed off my screen. But Kentucky was in the building. WKCT. I think I got that right. Anyway, we continue. Where do we go? We go here. We go to Tony, Montreal, listening on WVMT out of Vermont. Tony, go for it quickly.
Rich, I don't know if you've heard about this out of Kentucky, but Judge Jessica E. Green has now commuted a 14-year sentence for kidnapping of a wife and a child at knife point on a habitual criminal for 5 months in prison, calling it shock therapy or shock probation. So allowing a person to do this type of harm, now you can get out because it's shock therapy. So take a look at...
Wow, shock therapy. I'll check out the judge and we'll look at that story. Maybe that's something we'll talk about tomorrow. Hopefully you'll call back. Thanks, Tony. And amigos, I appreciate it. Hasta la próxima. Take care. Good night. And God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.